Welcome back. I hope you are feeling awesome. As a part of this video, we'll understand how null is different from empty space. So what we understood when we looked at null is nothing but a absence of a value, or it is a value that doesn't exist. That is a null. What is an empty space? Empty space, on the other hand, is a real value. You may not be able to believe this, but it is a real value. Why do you say it is a real value? It happens to be a string value containing 0 characters. That is an empty space. So when we are dealing with the data, we need to be aware how null is different from empty space. Then only we'll be able to approach any calculations or analysis properly. So let us understand this with examples. Before we do that, what we'll do is we'll insert a space, that is an empty space, into a table. How do I do that? This is my employee table. In this employee table, I would like to insert a record which contains a empty space. So after executing this statement, I will get a table where one of the record with the employee 7 has an empty space. Remember, empty space is not equal to null. Null is different from empty space. We are reiterating this multiple times. So now we inserted the empty space. We need to see how it behaves. How do we really differentiate between the empty space and null, right? Let us look into that now. When you say count star on any table, it doesn't worry about whether we have a empty space or a null value. Anyway, empty space is always having a value. Even though it looks empty, it has a value. But null is the absence of a value. When you say count star, that means you're trying to count all the records in a table. You have a null here, you have a null here, you have a null here, null here. Okay. So count star considers the null values also while counting. So our result would be 8 because it is considering the null values also. Now, in the previous slide, when we counted, we understood it counts everything. Now we got to differentiate between how empty space is different from null values. Let us understand that. If you count on an employee name here, employee name column happens to have an empty space, right? We inserted that. So what should be the count here? Is it 6 or 7? Can you think of? It is 7. That is because it is considering this space as well, because it is a real value. Even though it looks empty, but it is a real value. What happens if you do the same thing on a column with a null value? What would be the result here? We do have an empty space. We understood in the previous slide, the SQL will consider the empty space also while counting a particular column. But now we have a column with the null value. What would be the result now? While counting a column, null is not considered. So again, we'll get a count as a 7 because it is not considering this particular value. That is how empty space is different from null. Wonderful. Let us look at this as a part of our hands-on example. Thank you.